The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Okay, welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuppridge.
And I'm Ryan Riskey, and on the SportsTownChicago.com hotline is Chris Simpson of the Daily Blitz. Chris, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I noticed on social media last night you attended the Bulls and Warriors game. That must have been fun.
Yeah, it was. God, it was so crowded. That's probably the most packed I've ever seen the United Center, especially for a regular season game. I do love basketball. I'm a big sports fan in general. And it was good to see Steph up close. I mean, I honestly think he's the best player in the NBA right now because he's not human. To be his size and for him to do what he did, yeah, he's not real. I mean, it's almost like watching a video game up close.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, he's just amazing to watch. Him and LeBron James are the two best players in the NBA. And
how was it just going there as a basketball fan to see them destroy a team rather than going to see, let's say, the Knicks? I assume you're a Knicks fan, seeing them going and destroying the Knicks.
Come on, man. Don't bring the Knicks in the vein. You just threw slander on the Knicks' name. Nah, it was just fun. I mean, when people say they're the best team in the NBA, they are truly the best team in the NBA. They play defense. They play offense. They share the ball. I mean, they find the open man. They can shoot. They can take it to the hole. And I mean, it was just great to watch. And I've seen a couple of MVPs before. I've seen Derrick Rose. Last night was my first time seeing him for the first time, and I want to say at least a good 3 or 4 years because
right.
He's unfortunately been injured. I've seen LeBron a couple of times, and he's won the MVP 3 or 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen Steve Nash, and now I can add Steph Curry to that list. And I mean, he's just so much fun to watch. The jump shot to see up close is unbelievable.
I agree there. And now let's head over to the football side. A lot of big games last weekend. I guess we can start with the Panthers and the Seahawks. I mean, they made a ferocious comeback at the end, and I think a lot of people saw somewhat of a comeback coming.
Yeah, they did. Excuse me, and you got to give Carolina the credit in the first quarter. They came out, and normally, I've always said coming into the divisional round that the team who recently played in a wild card round has a little bit of an edge because they've recently played football instead of having that week off. But Carolina just looked fresh. Jonathan Stewart was healthy. He's pretty dynamic to that offense. Cam was Cam. The defense was getting pressure on Russell Wilson. They got interceptions. They took away Marshawn Lynch and forced Russell Wilson to take the game over. And then the second half was when everything just started to go downhill for the Carolina Panthers. Not tackling, not getting off the field on third down. Russell's taking too many shots down the field. And Josh Norman got burned on a couple of plays.
Yeah, he did for sure. And it was just sort of interesting.
Yeah, has Marshawn Lynch played his final game with the Seahawks?
Definitely.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, too.
Definitely, because they saw what they had in Thomas Rawls, and unfortunately he went down. I think if he were playing in that game, I think Seattle would have won.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. It was like a tale of two halves. The Carolina Panthers were just on fire that first half, but then come the second half, Seattle starts that comeback, and that they always have it in them, and they're never really out of any game. And it was just very interesting to see. It was sort of a different game than any of the other ones that we saw last weekend.
Definitely.
Now,
I definitely agree.
Now, with the Seahawks, do you think that I'm sorry, not the Seahawks. The Panthers and the Cardinals are playing this weekend. Do you think that what can we expect from this game? Because you've got two high-powered offenses. I mean, Carolina's going to have their hands full trying to stop Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown, and Michael Floyd.
Yeah, and I think Arizona's the most complete team of football. They almost remind me of a basketball team. They got an inside-out attack. They can pass it inside in the flat. They can take a shot down the field to a vertical stretch, to a vertical guy down the field. Fitzgerald, he's become their Hines Ward. laying blocks. He's playing in the slot, and he uses his veteran savviness to make a big catch when he knows his team needs it. You saw that a couple of times in the game on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Carson Palmer, he's having a great year. And think about it. Last year before he got hurt, they were rolling. I thought they would have been the 1 or the 2 seed in the NFC had he not got hurt. They still get to the playoffs with their 3rd and 4th string quarterback, and all their issues just came and caught up with them. And they have a good defense as well, though they are vulnerable in that safety spot that Matthew played.
Now, you just kind of gave us a brief glimpse of that Green Bay and Arizona game last weekend. Would you consider that one of the most exciting and crazy games you've ever watched?
Definitely, because, you really can't count Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers out. I mean, look at what he did with the supporting cast he had around him. After Cobb went down, I think everybody thought this offense was done, and you look ahead to last year, but they still got to the playoffs without their number 1 receiver, not too much of a running game, and limited weapons on the field.
Right, and I think one of the most interesting stats that kind of helps kind of describe how the game went was on that final drive. Jeff Janis had 101 receiving yards on 2 catches just on that drive. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean that's almost unheard of, having 101 receiving yards just on one drive, and they weren't just a bunch of catch and runs. Rodgers was heaving it down the field, and he kept making catch after catch.
Well, he has to get on the same page with somebody.
Right. Let's move over to the AFC now. It's going to be New England at Denver, and Peyton Manning had a pretty good game last week, although, of course, he did make some mistakes, but they did enough to beat the Steelers. What's your early prediction for this game on Sunday?
Well, this is a different Patriots team that's coming to town this time. Last time when they met, Brock Osweiler was starting for Denver, and New England didn't have Julian Edelman, and I don't think they had Danny Amendola as well. Now you have Amendola, you have Gronk, you have Julian Edelman, and obviously you have, I think, the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, under center, and Tom Brady.
Right.
He's there, and the Patriots' defense has handled business, but Denver, their defense has really carried this team, and if their offense can get on the same page, this is a scary Broncos team. I'm taking Denver in this one. They're at home. I think that defense, they're up for the challenge.
Yeah, I definitely think that this game could be more competitive than the other game in the NFC between Arizona and Carolina, just because you have 2 veteran quarterbacks going back and forth, and the Patriots do have some of their weapons back, and I think it's just going to be a great game.
Definitely, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I'm just looking forward to it because I love it when these 2 quarterbacks meet up. They're 2 of the best ever. They have such a tremendous amount of respect for one another, Tom and Peyton, and this is going to be, the 17th time that these guys are going to meet up, and I know Brady has the upper hand, but in the AFC title game, Peyton's beat him 2 times. That's
kind of funny because in the regular season, Brady's usually the one that wins, and again, it's always fun watching the 2 of them. If Tom Brady and the Patriots win, do you think Peyton Manning's going to come back for another season, or do you think he's going to retire?
Honestly, if I were him, I'd retire. Look, the guy has nothing left to prove. Go spend time with your family. You have a wife at home. You're a parent. You've accomplished everything set out that any quarterback can. You lead the league history-wise in passing passing yards. You're the all-time leader in touchdown passes thrown. You have a Super Bowl ring. You've played 18 seasons. You just know when you have to hang it up. Then again, it wouldn't surprise me if he did come back because, maybe he has something he feels that he wants to prove, especially with the season he's had.
Right, and that also makes you wonder about Tom Brady. I think they're around the same age. I think they're like 12 months apart, 13 months apart, something like that. I don't see Tom
retiring anytime soon. I mean, the way his offensive line protects him, and then just the way he prepares to get into games for the regular season. I mean, there was an interesting read. I'm going to tag you guys in it on social media. His diet,
okay.
And all I could say was, wow. And he said he wants to play well into his 40s, and the way he eats, it wouldn't surprise me if that happened because, he's 38 years old right now. I think he's better now than he was, say, 10, 12, or 13 years ago.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and he's certainly more healthy than Manning is. So that's
Definitely.
sort of interesting too.
I think it's kind of interesting because Brady just kind of came out of nowhere, had this great season, and it was kind of like Manning a couple of years ago. I think they were both 37 at the start of that season when they both had just went off and looked like they could play another 5 or 10 years.
You talking about Peyton's
MVP the record year, yeah, the year he set like every single season passing yards record.
Yeah, well, God, it helps when you're throwing 6 and 7 touchdown passes a game, Ryan.
That is true. He was on a mission that year, and it looks like Tom Brady's just on the same one.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Tom is I just think what really impresses me more than Peyton's always had better receivers around him. You go back to his Indianapolis days, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Marcus Pollard. So he always had a good arsenal of weapons around him. Brady turned guys like David Patton and Troy Brown and, guys like that into household names in the early 2000s. And then you look at, I think Tom's most impressive year was 2013 because he lost just about everybody, if I'm not mistaken. Wes Welker goes to Denver. Gronk was in and out the lineup with injuries. They released Deion Branch. You obviously know about what happened with Aaron Hernandez, and he still gets to the AFC title game with Aaron Dobson and Ken Burrell-Tompkins as his 2 wide receivers.
Was that the year he only threw 4 interceptions, or was that the year before that?
That was the year before that. That was his last MVP season.
What he's done is pretty amazing. Now, there's a lot of reporters are kind of saying things like they should try to go after Megatron. Maybe a change of scenery will help revive him because that's kind of what they did with Randy Moss.
Yeah, but did they win it all that year when they had Randy Moss? Don't get me wrong. I thought it was great, but Brady showed that I think he's better without, the quote-unquote sexy household name compared to, having a guy like a Calvin Johnson or a Randy Moss. I mean, this is a guy I've seen. He won a Super Bowl last year with Edelman, Amendola, LaFell, and Gronk. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter who you put around Tom Brady. He's going to make you well-known.
Right.
Except for Ken Burrell-Tompkins. Tom Brady couldn't make him better, and then the Raiders didn't want him.
Yeah, it happens, man.
All right, Chris. Good stuff as always. Before we let you go, let the people know your social media stuff and also about your website.
DailyBlitz61.com is the website. You can follow us on Twitter at DailyBlitz_61, and you can follow our Facebook fan page, Facebook.com/DailyBlitz.
All right, and we'll have Chris Simpson back on next week previewing the Super Bowl. So right now, how about we all go? Who's going to win the games this weekend?
I'm taking Denver. I just think Denver, they'll clamp down. They'll try their best to stop Julian Edelman. But that pick right now was kind of up in the air because Denver might not have Chris Harris. He's their best cover corner, and Julian Edelman or Gronk could have a field day on that Denver secondary. If Chris Harris doesn't play, New England wins. If Chris Harris plays, Denver wins. You'll find out more on the website within the next couple of days. The NFC title game, I'm going with Arizona. I just think, I'm kind of concerned about Carolina because you can't play two-half football like that, especially when there's so much on the line. And if Arizona puts you down, they're going to keep you down.
That's true. I'm going to go with the Patriots and the Cardinals then. What about you, Ryan?
I am going with the Broncos and the Panthers. I think those are my picks for this week.
All right. We'll find out which one of us was right next week. Chris, again, thanks for calling in. We're excited to have you on next week.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
You too.
Yep.
That was Chris Simpson of the Daily Blitz. You can follow the Daily Blitz on Twitter at DailyBlitz61. As always, we had great football conversation with him, even mixing a little basketball. We're going to take a quick break, and coming up after that, we're going to be discussing more of the Blackhawks. We're going to be doing our starting NFL franchise, who we start a franchise with for sustained success at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and kicker. And then, as always, we'll have a little bit of Cubs talk as well. You're listening to the Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com.
The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.